Bon matin, merci beaucoup tout le monde. Ça fait presque un mois que les gouvernements ont fermé notre économie. Et toujours, les petites et moyennes entreprises n'ont reçu un seul sou des gouvernements en aide de sauvetage. Je parle littéralement. Oui, des comptes d'urgence pour les entreprises canadiennes sont ouvertes pour des applications la semaine dernière. Mais aucun sou a été livré pour l'instant. La semaine prochaine, on nous dit que ces prêts seront disponibles. Mais pour maintenant, rien. En plus, le ministre des Finances a avoué dans la Chambre des communes la semaine dernière qu'on va devoir attendre une autre 4 semaines avant que les subventions de salaire arrivent pour les petites et moyennes entreprises. Une autre 4 semaines. Aux États-Unis, plus de 220 000 petites et moyennes entreprises ont reçu des prêts et des subventions de salaire il y a des semaines. En Allemagne, les entreprises ont reçu leur aide le 2 avril. Alors le Canada est en train de suivre très, très en arrière des autres. Et c'est pire que ça. Pour la période de paie du mois de mars, les entreprises recevront leur subvention salariale en mai. Alors, pour les salaires payés en mars, la subvention arrivera en mai. C'est impossible, ce n'est pas soutenable et nos petites et moyennes entreprises sont en crise. C'est pour ça que je suis ici aujourd'hui afin de proposer une solution pratique. J'annonce au nom du Parti conservateur une proposition que le gouvernement permette aux petites et moyennes entreprises de recevoir leurs subventions salariales la semaine prochaine des banques ou caisses populaires. La proposition va fonctionner comme ainsi. Premièrement, il y a déjà des comptes d'urgence que le gouvernement a établis avec les banques et les caisses populaires. C'est garanti par le gouvernement, zéro intérêt. Mais la limite de 40 000 n'est pas suffisante pour payer des salaires. En fait, ce n'est pas suffisant pour payer des autres factures d'hypothèque, d'électricité et d'autres coûts qui continuent de s'accumuler. Donc, nous proposons d'éliminer cette limite pour la seule raison de payer des salaires et de couvrir la subvention. Et quand l'argent arrivera finalement de l'Agence du revenu du Canada, les entreprises puissent rembourser les banques et les caisses populaires. Donc, ça permettra aux petites et moyennes entreprises d'avoir entre les mains la subvention salariale la semaine prochaine au lieu dans 4 semaines ou plus tard. C'est une solution pratique et aux États-Unis, ça a déjà fonctionné. En fait, aux États-Unis, les petites et moyennes entreprises ont reçu leur subvention salariale il y a presque un mois et ils ont reçu des banques les montants couverts par la subvention étaient non remboursables. Et le gouvernement des États-Unis a remboursé les banques. Cela a permis des entreprises d'avoir l'argent entre les mains pour payer les travailleurs vite et rapidement. Nous devons demander exactement la même chose de notre gouvernement. Notre proposition est facile, est pratique, et le gouvernement pourrait le mettre en place la semaine prochaine. Thank you very much for coming, ladies and gentlemen. It's been almost a month since government shut down the Canadian economy, and small businesses have not received a single penny. Let me say that again. It has been almost a month since governments shut down the Canadian economy, and our small businesses have not received a single penny in rescue assistance. Yes, last week they were able to begin applying for the small business emergency bank account. That money won't start flowing until next week. Worse yet, the finance minister admitted in the House of Commons last week that the wage subsidy will not arrive for as long as 4 weeks. And that's the best case scenario in reality. Because let me give you the scenario that we're faced with right now. For a small business to get a wage subsidy covering his March payroll, he will have to wait until May. That's right. A wage subsidy in May to cover wages paid out in March. And that's with revenues for small businesses having, in some cases, dropped to zero as a result of the shutdown. This is absolutely unsustainable, especially when you compare to our international competitors. Our friends in Germany paid emergency assistance to their small businesses on April the 2nd. The United States paid out its wage subsidy to small businesses through banks and credit unions almost a month ago. In fact, 220,000 American businesses have now received that assistance, unlike in Canada, where 0 businesses have received emergency assistance. That's why I'm here today, to make a practical proposal to bring urgent assistance to the small businesses who are the backbone of our Canadian economy. And so on behalf of the Conservative Party, we today propose the government make the wage subsidy available next week to small businesses through their banks and credit unions. It'd work like this. Right now, the government has set up an emergency business account. Unfortunately, has a limit of $40,000, which is not even close to enough to cover the bills, let alone pay the wages of the business. We propose to lift that limit for businesses that want to spend on wages. Businesses would then spend the money on wages and reimburse the banks or credit unions as soon as the wage subsidy arrives from the Canada Revenue Agency. In other words, the money is available now, and it can be repaid once the government sends the payment in 4 or 5 weeks. That would allow businesses to begin paying wages immediately for workers who are without pay and for businesses who are struggling with 80, 90, and even 100% revenue loss. It is a practical and simple solution. It is the approach the Americans took that allowed them to deliver emergency small business wage subsidies a month ago rather than in May. This is a practical solution we call on the government to execute immediately. We believe that they can have the wage subsidy in the hands of our small businesses in the next 48 to 72 hours if they follow this course of action. And it is necessary to move and move quickly. Our small businesses are literally drowning under a massive debt of unpaid bills, mortgages, utilities, wages, and other expenses that they simply cannot meet because governments have shut down the economy and made it impossible for them to generate revenue. We as Conservatives have been practical from the very beginning. We have fought for the subsidy to be brought up from 10% to 75%, and we won that fight. We said that credit unions should be allowed to deliver the emergency business accounts rather than just the banks themselves, and the government seems to be backing down on that as well. We told the government to close the borders to foreign visitors well before they actually backed down and agreed to do that, and we were proven right on that as well. We will continue to make practical, sensible suggestions to protect the lives and livelihoods of Canadians. Now, let me close by thanking James Cumming, the great Edmonton businessman and member of Parliament, who was instrumental in designing these proposals. Were it not for travel restrictions, he would be here today announcing them with me. But he could tell you, as an Edmontonian, as a businessman, how important it is to get the money flowing, to pay our workers, and to keep our small businesses alive. They are the lifeblood of our economy, and we must be there to protect them from this shutdown now more than ever. I close by signaling to the government that we stand ready to help them with practical suggestions, to brief them on ideas that might help solve the problems that they have caused. And we will be waiting next to our phones to receive their call, and we will answer it when it comes. Thank you very much. I now await your questions.
We'll now start the question period. We'll start on the phone. Opérateur au téléphone, do we have questions on the line?
Merci. Thank you. Nous allons maintenant passer à la période de questions. We will now take questions from the telephone lines. Si vous utilisez un téléphone main libre, s'il vous plaît, soulevez le combiné avant d'effectuer votre sélection. If you have a question and you're using a speakerphone, please lift your handset before making your selection. Si vous désirez poser une question, veuillez s'il vous plaît appuyer sur les touches étoile 1 de votre téléphone à clavier. If you have a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. Vous pouvez à tout moment annuler votre question en appuyant sur le dièse. If at any time you wish to cancel your question, please press the pound sign. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. Il y aura un court délai vous permettant de vous enregistrer dans la file d'attente pour la période de questions. There will be a brief pause while the participants register for questions. Merci de patienter, and thank you for your patience.
And while the callers register their questions by telephone, let me take this moment on behalf of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition to thank the people who are doing the work of the nation, our truckers, our cashiers, our security personnel, people who are working in hospitals and long-term care facilities. They are truly our national heroes, and Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition, in fact, all Canadians are deeply grateful, and I would like to thank them on behalf of my constituents.
Opérateur, première question au téléphone.
Merci. Nous n'avons pas de questions pour le moment. There are no questions registered at this time.
Parfait.
We have one question from Jordan Press of Canadian Press. Your line is open. La parole est à vous. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Sir, I wanted to get your thoughts about, if you're talking about helping small businesses, I believe it's in Singapore, part of the package that they have has been aimed at trying to help businesses innovate and get themselves prepared for when the economic activity is able to resume. And so instead of simply funding what is already there, maybe helping them to retool during this time. I'm just curious to get your thoughts if that should be part of some of the thinking going on now, beyond just simply trying to get more money to them very quickly.
Well, I'm always interested in what Singapore is doing, Mr. Press, because it is one of the most successful economies in the world. In fact, they have a GDP per capita about $20,000 higher than Canada's, even though they have no natural resources, are isolated on a very small island with extraordinary population density. They even have to import, I think, their own water to survive there, and yet they are one of the wealthiest jurisdictions on planet Earth. And the reason, of course, for that is that they have one of the freest and most open economies in the world. Free trade, free enterprise, very small government, and extremely low taxes have allowed Singapore to become so successful in such a short time. We can learn from that. And that means when we come out of this, we are going to have to lower our tax burden, open up our economy, unleash the forces of our entrepreneurs by removing the regulatory barriers that governments consistently and unnecessarily put in their place. As for telling businesses how to innovate, I don't believe governments are very good at that. I don't think politicians and bureaucrats can tell businesses how to become more innovative. Frankly, our entrepreneurs know far better than any politician or bureaucrat about how to innovate and deliver better products and services to their customers and better jobs to their workers. It would rather, our approach would be to give this rescue money to our businesses, let them decide how they use it, and then when we come out of this lockdown, to remove the barriers and the heavy burden that government has put on the shoulders of our entrepreneurs so that they can flourish and prosper using their own God-given talents and industriousness. Unfortunately, Canada's economy was weak before we went into this recession, this lockdown. We had a 0.3% economic growth in the last 3 months of 2019. That was before a single case of COVID-19. Our unemployment was higher than in the UK, the US, Germany, and Japan. Our investment was down significantly over the last 5 years as government policies have caused investors to flee. We have an economy that is based on and driven by consumption, debt-fueled consumption by governments and households. And that can't continue. You cannot consume more than you produce indefinitely because eventually your savings run out and your credit card is maxed. The only way to move forward is to begin producing, and production means investment by private sector entrepreneurs who know best how to allocate resources and turn $1 into more. That will be our goal as we begin to restart the economy after the lockdown ends.
And sir, just as a follow-up, can you just give me a sense, what would be your message? You're talking about consumption, and consumer spending has obviously declined sharply. What would be your message and your party's message to consumers right now who, in relation to the fact that you're trying to help small businesses, what would be your message to consumers who may be rethinking some of their spending right now about how they might be able to help some of the small businesses in this country?
Conservatives encourage consumers to shop locally, buy from your local grocery store, look for independent businesses that are still open and able to sell. I think of Stanley's Old Maple Farm, which is just east of where I live. They're still selling prepared foods that conform to the shutdown regulations. They do so in a safe manner that allows people to avoid going to, if they so choose, to avoid going to grocery stores. There are other businesses like that who are making food and other supplies available. So shop locally and support our local producers. One of our big challenges, though, of course, is that our consumers went into this crisis maxed out. Record household debt of nearly $1.70 for every dollar of earnings. We also have, according to MNP, one of Canada's most respected accounting and bankruptcy and insolvency firms, 1 in 2 Canadians to less than $200 from insolvency at the end of every month, and that was before the COVID crisis. And in other words, we cannot simply expect consumers to go out and revive our economy through more debt-fueled spending. They have no money left to spend. That's why this recovery is going to have to be based on production, on investment in productive assets that generate more wealth. We have to generate more wealth so that we can pay our bills. Debt will not solve our problems. It is a short-term source of funding to rescue our lives and livelihoods, but it is not a long-term plan to restore the prosperity of our people.
Opérateur, deuxième question au téléphone.
Merci. De nouveau, n'hésitez pas à appuyer sur étoile 1 pour toute question. Once again, please press star 1 if you have a question. La prochaine question est de Gray Mackenzie de CTV News. So the next question is from Gray Mackenzie of CTV News. La parole est à vous. Please go ahead.
Hi, Pierre. Mackenzie here from CTV. On long-term care homes, one of the things we've seen
at the Dorval long-term care home is that a number of workers basically left their job. They were concerned about their health, and the wage they were receiving was similar to what they get on the CERB if they left their job. So what measures would the Conservative Party either support or propose to make sure that staff in these long-term care home and other home care workers actually stay on the job to help our most vulnerable out?
We Conservatives are proposing that workers, that the government design its employment subsidy and the CERB benefit in a way that ensures people are always better off working. And here's the problem with the design of the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. Under the rules, if you work more than 10 hours, you lose your benefit and you become poorer. So I have a friend who owns a deli. If his workers do more than 10 hours, they lose their CERB, and they're poorer than if they had not worked at all. I can't think of a policy more perverse and backwards than one that punishes people for the crime of working hard. So Conservatives are proposing that workers be allowed to keep their CERB benefit even while they work more than 10 hours, and that it be gently phased out at, say, a rate of 30 cents on the dollar, so that people are always better off working more and contributing to our Canadian economy. I've told that to Minister Morneau. I know that Andrew Scheer, our leader, has told the same to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and I hope that they will be sitting down with their officials to make the necessary adjustments so that we were in all cases reward the working people of this country for the sacrifices they make and the hours they're putting in.
As my follow-up, over the weekend, OPEC agreed to cut oil production. Do you think Canada should follow suit and start some kind of government-mandated reduction in oil production?
So I will respond to that question. I just forgot to mention something related to your first question. There's even firefighters in Quebec who wonder if they're going to lose their CERB benefit if they respond to too many calls. So they get a call that there's a fire in their rural community. They go and work 11 hours over the course of a month, putting out fires and saving lives. Under the current rules, they could lose their emergency benefit. I mean, can you imagine a worse policy than that, to punish the most courageous people who are going into burning houses and rescuing people by taking away their income security in the middle of a crisis? It is a terrible design flaw, and the government needs to fix that so that we always reward workers and we always ensure that they have a solid ground under their feet to protect them, especially if they make the courageous decision to go in and contribute to our economy and their employers. Now, on the question of oil and the curtailment, I understand that the Saudis, Russians, and other producers have agreed to a 9.7 million barrel per day curtailment of production. I think this is the biggest curtailment in history. It represents about 10% of normal daily consumption is being removed, and that should move prices up. Frankly, the question was, should Canada curtail production? Well, the reality is we already have curtailed production for the last 5 years. Justin Trudeau has been shutting down piece by piece our energy sector and destroying its ability to produce. And as a result, production is already down significantly in this country, even while it has more than doubled south of the border in the same time period. So we really can't reduce it any more than we already have. And at various times in the last 2 weeks, a barrel of Western Canada Select oil has been cheaper than a pint of beer. Obviously, that can't go on. And I hope that with this curtailment, global curtailment, that the prices will rise and pull up Canadian prices with them. I think Jason Kenney has done the right thing in trying to find ways to keep the Keystone expansion alive so we can deliver more oil to the American Gulf Coast. But that will not be enough. We need more pipelines, and we need them in a hurry. Now, here's a real idea for stimulus. Right now, there are $20 billion of projects seeking federal approval, most of them for natural gas projects. And the biggest one, of course, is in Quebec, The gazoduc project, which is both a pipeline and a natural gas liquefaction project worth a combined $14 billion. Now, unfortunately, because of the terrible political environment in Canada, Warren Buffett had to pull $4 billion out of that project. But if Justin Trudeau were to sit down with his regulators today and say, look, we've got a crisis here. I want you to use this lockdown period to expedite every single project before you. Complete the necessary consultations quickly with our First Nations people. Expedite the work that our biologists and other experts can tell us about the environmental impact of those projects. And get a final decision for them by the summer. Then we could come out of lockdown and have perhaps $20 billion of heavy construction ready to go with no cost to taxpayers. You want stimulus? That's stimulus. The Prime Minister should get busy and start making it happen right now.
We'll now take question in the room. Christian Noël, Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour.
Certainement. Bonjour, M. Poilievre. Joyeuse Pâques.
Oui, joyeuse Pâques.
Les travailleurs étrangers temporaires qui doivent aider les agriculteurs, l'industrie de la transformation des fruits de mer, par exemple, dans l'Est canadien. Comment est-ce que le gouvernement, vous croyez, devrait aider ceux qui ont besoin de ces travailleurs-là et ces travailleurs-là qui viennent travailler ici? Un, pour les payer et deux, pour les protéger.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much et joyeuse Pâques. La question était par rapport aux travailleurs étrangers qui sont venus pour aider nos industries d'agriculture et de transformation. So the question, of course, was about the temporary foreign workers who are here working in agriculture and fish processing and other industries. First of all, premièrement, je pense que le gouvernement devrait nous assurer que tous ces travailleurs sont testés pour le coronavirus, pour qu'on sache qu'ils n'essiment pas la maladie. Au Singapour, ils ont eu une grande explosion soudaine du virus à cause du fait que les travailleurs étrangers étaient trop serrés en proximité l'un de l'autre et qu'ils n'avaient pas été testés. Alors maintenant, Singapour doit répondre à cette urgence. So the first thing we have to do is make sure that the government tests all of these temporary foreign workers who have come in since we closed the border to foreign travel to make sure that none of them have the coronavirus. And if they do, they have to be quarantined until such time as they recover. Deuxièmement, je pense que le gouvernement devrait contacter tous les Canadiens ayant appliqué pour la prestation d'urgence pour les informer de tous les employeurs qui cherchent des travailleurs étrangers. Parce que s'il y a un employeur qui cherche des travailleurs étrangers, au moins les travailleurs locaux canadiens devraient avoir la première chance à recevoir ces emplois. C'est possible que les Canadiens ne sont pas dans une bonne position pour remplir et combler la demande, et c'est correct, mais au moins ils devraient avoir la chance. So, secondly, Canadians who have applied for the Canadian emergency benefit should be informed every time a nearby employer has applied for a temporary foreign worker, because Canadians should have a first crack at every single job before it goes to a temporary foreign worker in these extraordinary times. Now, look, if Canadians can't fill the work, they are not available to do the job that the employer is seeking, then that's fine. The farmer or the business person does need to fill it with a temporary foreign worker, but the first crack should always go to a Canadian worker first.
Pour ce qui est de la question sanitaire, vous dites tester tous les travailleurs qui viennent ici. Est-ce que mettre les travailleurs en quarantaine dans une résidence universitaire ou dans un hôtel, les mettre en quarantaine, est-ce que c'est suffisant, vous croyez, pour assurer la sécurité sanitaire du pays?
Premièrement, non. Il faut les tester immédiatement. L'instant que quelqu'un arrive au Canada, il devrait être testé. Et maintenant, nous avons de la technologie qui permet au gouvernement de faire des tests et avoir des résultats dans 30 minutes. Alors, il faut tester. Chaque fois que quelqu'un entre dans le pays, il devrait tester. When somebody comes to this country and they have a legitimate reason to enter, they have to be tested immediately. We can't let people come into this country from abroad without being tested and then go out and spread the disease far and wide. That was the mistake the government of Canada made in the first place when they allowed 2,000 people from the Hubei province to come to Canada after January 22nd, after they had been briefed by military intelligence that the outbreak was dangerous and massive. Justin Trudeau let 2,000 people come in, and of those 2,000, 60 were given a brochure. That was it. Here, take this brochure. Alors que c'est l'erreur que le gouvernement de Justin Trudeau a fait. Il a déjà permis 2000 personnes de venir ici au Canada de la province Hubei, d'où provenait le coronavirus au début. Et 60 parmi eux ont reçu un dépliant pour leur dire sois prudent. Alors, c'est pour ça que nous sommes dans une telle situation maintenant. Donc, apprenons, il faut que chaque personne qui arrive au Canada soit testée immédiatement et les gens infectés soient isolés totalement et par force si nécessaire.
Last question.
Hi, Tom Perry with CBC. The federal government's put out new guidelines for long-term care facilities. These are just guidelines. These are provincially regulated. I'm just wondering what your party's position is on the role Ottawa could play in ensuring that people in these facilities are better looked after.
Two things the federal government can do. First of all, as you properly pointed out, these facilities are provincially regulated, so the federal government can't impose a lot of rules and regulations. But there are two things it can do. One is expedite resupply of personal protective equipment and essential medical equipment like ventilators, face masks, gloves, etc., so that if there is an outbreak, we have our medical professionals and the support workers have all the equipment that they need. Obviously, Justin Trudeau gave away 16 tons of stockpiles of essential medical equipment, and now we're all scrambling trying to backfill because of that mistake. Conservatives have put out a 4-point plan to resupply Canada. So that we can protect against future outbreaks and super spreader events like we've seen at seniors' homes. Secondly, we need to speed up testing. Everybody who enters a senior's home should be tested before they can go in. And now we know that we have the technology to do it. Just to the government's credit, last week they approved Spartan Biosciences coffee cup-sized test that allows an individual test to happen every 30 minutes. Premier Ford, I think, is buying 800,000 of these devices. This should allow us to immediately test anyone who's going into a seniors facility, to regularly test the staff who, by necessity, have to come and go, to test suppliers who are delivering food and other essentials into the facility, so that we minimize and hopefully eliminate the phenomenon of human carriers walking in and leaving the disease behind with our most vulnerable people.
And just on your plan to speed things up in terms of getting support out for small business.
Yes.
I mean, do you think that there's the resources, the federal government has the resources to do that? It seems like they'd be pretty stretched at this point, putting out the CERB and other programs.
So first of all, I'm happy to take more questions. I have no problem taking more if you want. And in response to your question, the answer is no. They don't have the resources, and that's why I'm saying the banks and the local credit unions should have the chance to deliver these benefits. All the government needs to do is expand the emergency business accounts that it has established through the banks and the credit unions, extend the government guarantee beyond $40,000, and cover the interest of the short-term loan. And then the bank and the credit union can immediately lend out the wage subsidy, and small businesses can go and pay back that amount once CRA sends the check or deposits the money in their accounts. So you're right, the government is stretched. So why not let our frontline lenders deliver the money now and take that strain off the governmental system?
That's all the time we had this morning.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup.